Hello and welcome to episode number 35 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim, and today we're going to talk about hobbies and happiness past and look forward to the future.
All right, so so last week we we're back. Last week was us just kind of getting back in the swing of things.
But now we're really back.
Now we're really back, guys. We're so this podcast, we're still audio only. We next week we will be releasing video content for sure. We're probably going to be recording that this week, but we still got a little bit of testing to do. Jim, how do you think the studio looks?
Good.
Yeah. Jim is a man of very many words. If you've been a listener for a while, you've probably picked up on that.
I've had this idea in the past before. I don't know if I ever told you, but I wanted to go through like an entire podcast of saying like 7 words.
Oh, total?
Yeah, total.
I don't know if I could do that. That'd be just me just talking a lot of filler.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably could do that, but would I want to do that? That's a whole other.
Yeah.
That's a whole other question.
Yeah. No.
But I mean, you're liking the studio, huh?
Yeah.
Looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having fun putting it together. So this has been fun. I've got adding a bunch of trying to add some color into the mix. Doing a few things differently, but I've got more chairs now. So so now I can use this table for actual game nights with other friends too, as opposed to just. Do you remember there was one night we had Noah, who we mentioned on the show before, and I can't remember who else, but we had a couple people. What were we playing? We played that one dice game. No, we played that one dice game. Remember where? Like you rolled and
10,
then
000?
You busted. Yeah, I think it was 10,000.
Yeah, 10,000.
Yeah. So Noah and Noah played. Michael was here. I think there was at one point we had like 5 people around that table.
Maybe. I don't.
Do you remember? But you remember that?
I
right?
remember. Yeah.
So and
because it was also the same night we played Magic as well.
Was it?
Yeah, because Michael was eating pizza when he showed up.
Oh,
so then we were finishing up our game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. But I had some, and I still have these chairs, but they were crappy folding chairs that like anytime I would get them out, I always feel like I'm going to fall through them because they're that bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to sit on it.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So those, I was not a fan of those. We still have them, but with everything going on, I'm like, I want to get better chairs for this table. That way we can just have actual legit game nights here, or just when we play games with more than you and me. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that because we are planning some Commander pretty soon. So that's gonna be fun. Looking forward to that. But anyway, let's quit the rambling. And let's get to to today's topic. So what we're talking about today is last week we got back. We're back into it. This week I wanted to really look back, do a retrospect on 2021, kind of look back to where we came from, how we started, and honestly just do a little bit of introspection here, and then look forward to 2022. Mm-hmm. So let's just get right into it. The first thing I've got written down here, 2021 will always be our inaugural year and when we officially, quote, started. Now, I remember when Jim came into my office and we sat down and I told him kind of the ideas that were running in my head. Now, at the time, unbeknownst to me, Jim kind of had some similar thoughts and plans of his own that he was already working on. And to be honest, I don't know if I told you this, but when you told me that, I mean, inside my head, I'm just like, I was so happy and so excited. I'm like, yes, like that to me, that was a sign for me that I'm like, we are supposed to be doing this. And I was excited. We had done nothing, but I was excited right then and there.
Nothing.
Well, yes.
We've done a lot.
Yes. But, no, you're right. Because before that, before that, Jim had already been working on this for a bit.
Yeah.
And so I should say I had done nothing up to that point. For me, it was I just had some ideas in my head. And I'm like, Jim was the first person that I thought of. I'm like, nah, I got to talk to Jim, man. So you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. And because, when Dan brought it up to me, I was like, yeah, I could have swore I told them that I could have swore I told the not D&D.
The group,
the group, the magic group, but it was my other magic group that you don't want to be a part of. It's terrible. So
he loves you guys. He loves you. It's all right.
Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. One day there was like 167 messages that were just brand new. I didn't want to read them all. So, so I told them that I was going to be working on like opening a store, getting funds together, buying and selling cards.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few weeks later, Dan's like, hey, let's talk about this. I'm like, oh, all right.
I don't know if I ever asked you, but like, what did you think when I texted you first? And then after that meeting, like what were you thinking at that time?
I don't know exactly what I was thinking. I really thought it was a good idea because I've thought about like getting a partner for doing the thing for for some time now. Sure. And I even brought it up to my girlfriend, and she's like, out of all the people you've considered already, that's probably the best choice. And I'm like, yeah, probably.
Yeah, and then we just started from there. And then not soon thereafter, we just really started meeting, because at that point, I'm like, dude, we just got to start talking. We got to start brainstorming. We got to be getting all these ideas down. Yeah. And then this podcast was the first thing that we officially, quote unquote, launched.
Yeah.
And I'm still upset, mostly at myself, but over that break that we had, and I know people have said like I shouldn't be upset about it, because life happens, and the important things, I got to make sure my priorities are straight, which is 100% correct. It's totally true. It's just, when stuff like that happens, I really wished that, we didn't take that as long of a break as we did. But honestly, looking at the studio now, I'm like, I'm glad that we're here to this point now. And, it's weird because, we go through situations and trials or whatever you want to call it. Sometimes we never know why that's for. And honestly, right now, I don't really know 100% why we had to do that, but I know we did. But all that to say, I'm glad that we're at least back to
everything happens for a reason. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. So the first episode of the podcast we launched on March 24th of 2021, and the title, there we go, the title of the episode was The Mission of Hobbies and Happiness. You know what? I listened to that episode again today. Yeah. Because I'm like, I gotta listen to it. You remember are we doing this live? It's like how we started it.
F it, we're doing it live.
Yeah. And you said one thing right away. You're like, man, I'm nervous. You still nervous?
A little less. And more. Now my nervousness really only comes out during like certain games we play.
Yeah, and that's more.
Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right, when you're not super familiar with the deck or whatever it is, if you're not 100% familiar with it, and you know what, that's like our body. That's honestly, it's our body's response. It's fight or flight, right? That's your body's response telling you, get out of there. And you know what? I think, and I think we've probably talked about this before, but like if I ever get nervous, that's when I look back on that situation, and I'm like, okay, this is a good sign for me that next time I prepare more, or, that way I'm ready to do whatever it is. We talk about talking about a topic, for instance, or whatever the case may be. But like being nervous for me, I try and look at what my body's telling me in a situation like that, and just kind of see what I can learn from it. But yeah, I after listening to that episode today, I'm like, I wonder if he's still nervous.
Yeah, whenever I get nervous, I just throw hands. I'm like, all right, no.
So I pulled up the the outline of that episode right here.
Although I know, so when we were doing the podcast, I was nervous, but when we brought in the camera, I was far less nervous.
Were you now?
Yeah.
Really?
Because, I was already like live streaming and doing a little bit of YouTube at that point. So like I had a little bit of, work with the camera, and I was just able to I felt like I was able to connect with people more, since I'm also able to see myself, and then talking to that specifically.
So let me ask you this, because
I can play more to the camera.
So, but you just said because you could see yourself.
Yeah.
So the way I have the studio set up is, and this works for a lot of different reasons, but we have a monitor that we're both looking at that I can basically throw up anything. Like I could put on, if we're streaming, I could put on like what the audience is seeing, or I can put on a specific camera angle, or whatever. I can put on whatever screen. I can put whatever we want on the screen.
Yeah.
And the way we normally have it during our recordings is I'm putting on basically I'm putting on the camera that's on us. Yep. That way we can get like a good idea of how things look and if we need to change something. And so that's what we're seeing. So if I turn that off, would you be more nervous?
Do I get to see those over there?
No, if I turn all of those off.
Probably, yeah.
Well, it's just interesting because you mentioned that. I'm like, hey, that's an interesting thing.
I think it also comes from like when I was doing YouTube videos, I would we used to do the previous ones I did.
I know.
When I was doing them.
Yeah, right.
And so rather than putting filming everything all at once, I would take clips of me doing like a little skit or paragraph or whatever it was. Right. And then I would go watch it and then prepare myself for the next part of it. And then go back, watch that, work on it in editing, make sure all that's okay, and then continue. It took forever.
Well, yeah, because that was probably...
But it also made me a lot more comfortable.
Now, was that the first time you were doing that kind of video editing?
I was pretty much doing that from the start. Just because...
So, right. But from the start, did you have to learn all that from scratch, all that video editing? Or was that a skill that you had from before that?
Yeah, I did have to learn that stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah. I guess also working around with that stuff made me a little more comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. So in going through that outline, there's three words. There's three words that basically is the mission of Hobbies and Happiness that we honestly try to think of with everything that we're doing.
It's not excellence.
So we'll get into that.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But do you remember what they are, Jim?
Community.
Yep. Quality, community, and competition.
Yeah.
So and that's basically in our mission statement. Yeah. But I mean, we sat down and we talked about those. But the reason he said excellence in all we do is the Air Force.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah. So recently, me and Dan hopped on a Discord call, and I forget how it came up, but we were trying to remember. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so. And we were trying to remember like the three phrases that we used. Yeah. And I was like, I think one's excellence. I'm like, oh no, I'm confusing that with like junior ROTC. And because it's excellence in all we do.
Yeah, that's the Air Force, the Air Force motto.
Yeah. So
yeah, it was kind of funny. I'm like, when he said that, I'm like, no, dude, that's the Air Force, man. What are you talking about?
Like maybe I'm confusing that with something else.
Yeah. So anyway, that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But in any case.
Community is my biggest one.
Yeah, sure. And to be honest, like after listening to that episode and then just going back and listening to a lot of stuff that we've talked about on the podcast, like that is one thing that we both of us talk about a lot. But and I think I've said this from the beginning, like that is like your biggest driving factor and push in everything that we're doing is community.
Yeah,
whether that be online or in person here. And I mean I appreciate that, right? But I mean that's something that I know we both have really gotten around and are continuing to push, and we want to keep that push up for community. But again, not forgetting that quality and competition, right? And really, they really do all three work together, because even in that community, we want it to be a quality community. We want it to be a competitive community. That's not to say we want everyone to be competitive, right? But we do want to nurture a healthy, competitive community. And then even that quality, we want the quality. We want that quality in that competition, in that community, right? So just all three of those things working together, and I think we've succeeded even in this short little time that we've been doing this in 2021. And I want to keep pushing that envelope even more. So I'm really happy for how we started, but to that also to say I don't want to be taking our foot off the gas, right? And I feel like we've kind of done that with the break, but again, that it's not like we were slacking. It's just that it was something that was necessary. But now that we're back in the saddle, we're really gonna get after it. So when we started the podcast, right, the podcast first launched March 24th, right? And so we started recording videos in July 7th. So July 7th, that was the first video podcast. We had video in the podcast. And then our first actual produced video was July 23rd, and that was the Disney Villainous How to Play video. And I actually remember I was out of town when I was editing that video. Because I was figuring out, I did a lot of that on my laptop. Because I had so many ideas running around in my head from a post-production standpoint. So that was fun. Not our most popular video, but it was still fun to do. I mean, for anything that's the first one is always going to be memorable in a lot of different ways. Who do you think? Not Queen of Hearts. Yeah, you were Prince John. Oh, Prince John. You were Prince John, cool. And I was Maleficent. And to this day, I still cannot believe that whenever I played Maleficent, I did not know that you could just move the curses. I could not believe that I didn't realize that. And so speaking of Disney Villainous, I remember when you first started playing it, and we started playing it, relatively consistently. We've complained about the rules, right?
To this day.
Yeah, right. But for as much as we complain about it, having BGG as a resource is awesome. Yeah. Like having something to where you can immediately go and then find the answer is awesome. Yeah. So before I got into this community, my thought was always, well, I should be able to read the rule book and find everything. But that's never going to be the case. Yeah. That's never going to be the case. Like in any game, there's always going to be something to where you're like, well, the rule book isn't explicit in what they're telling me to do in this situation, so I have to figure that out for myself. So having a resource like that is awesome. Yeah. And plus, with any card game, that's always gonna happen. Rolling. Yeah. There's always gonna be something that comes up that you're just like, well, I don't know what to do in this
happens
situation.
A lot in card games.
Yeah, right. So, and we had plenty of mistakes in that. Pretty
video. Sure, I played it perfectly.
Yeah, he always plays it perfectly. I mean, come on.
I mean, it probably wasn't optimally,
but yeah. All right, and so next we started doing interviews on the podcast. The first interview was Michael, my brother-in-law. That was episode 5 on April 21st, and then our other first interview was Kelly. That was episode 22 on August 18th. So, and both of those are distinct because Michael was live, live in studio, which at that time was my kitchen table. And then with Kelly, that was a Zoom call basically. And so technically, those are both different technical challenges, right? And so like both of those are, for me, they're kind of big moments because they're, okay, I got to figure, I have to make sure I have an equipment for another person, you know, for the studio. But if we're doing a Zoom call, I need to, okay, how am I going to be able to see this person? How are we going to be able to hear this person? And then how are we going to be able to send them a good video signal and audio? So there's a lot of things that are going into play there. So those are both big firsts that you know I wanted to point out for 2021. Okay, now before we move into looking ahead to 2022, Jim, wanted to throw it to you. Now, outside of what we've talked about, is there anything else that stands out for you for 2021 that you know? I probably should ask you this beforehand, but I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here.
Well, I mean, there was a huge thing in August for me.
Yes?
Mid-August.
Is that what was it, August?
Yeah, August 15th.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just checked. I was like, oh, that was 3 days before that Kelly interview, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, I had no idea. But yeah, so Splinterlands is a huge part of my life right now.
All right.
And which, I mean, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And
we're probably going to do a whole other episode on it.
I actually know the perfect guy if we do that.
Oh, you mean like for an interview?
Yeah.
Well, that'll be a whole other conversation too.
Yeah, so it's an NFT card game on the blockchain. So, I mean, a lot of people have heard these buzzwords floating around, and sometimes it's not very good. But this company they've been doing this for 3 years now, and they're, I don't want to say going to the moon, but they're doing extremely well for themselves. And these cards, which if we're talking about like Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, they actually have a use inside this game. And so, yeah, that's you're playing as these little characters. You have a tank, healer, casters, rangers, assassins, and you're setting up a line, and it's an auto battler as well. So you putting them in specific locations, and they have speed and HP pools, and it's just kill your opponent's stuff before they kill your stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been in this now since August, and
yeah. So why is August 15th? Because you've got that day specific. What happened that day? Is that when you signed up? Or is that like when you found out?
That's when I learned about Splinterlands and made the account.
Okay.
That's also the day that we played scratch off tickets. Didn't win, unfortunately, but I say like we still won the lottery because I learned about Splinterlands.
Right.
So that exact night. August
Now there
15th.
was one other thing. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Okay.
I'm pretty much done.
Okay, all right. But there was one other thing, and I thought this is what you were going to say. But we had our first community game day.
Yes.
I think that was in July, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it in July?
What's that?
Was it in July?
I think I could be wrong. I don't know why July is sticking in my head. I'd have to look for sure. But when I was making this outline, for whatever reason, that did not come into my head.
Yeah, when you were saying like me specifically, I'm like, all right, well then, yeah, this was me specifically.
Yeah. So we had our first community game day.
Yeah.
Wanted to have more in 2021, but there was just a lot of stuff that was happening.
Yeah.
So for 2022, we definitely want to do a few more of those. But that was a lot of fun.
Even if it's with smaller groups of people.
For sure. Yeah, we just got everybody together in the community, had it rented out, basically half of a gym.
Yeah, gymnasium.
Technically, we had the whole gym. But had a bunch of tables set up, played a bunch of games, got to meet a bunch of people in the community. So that was a lot of fun. So definitely we want to be looking forward to that for 2022.
Yes.
So we've talking a lot about 2021, but now let's move on to looking ahead to 2022. So first thing I've got here is continued polishing of video content. Yeah, I mean that's like a personal thing because I do a lot of the post production for a lot of these videos. I'm always looking out for new ideas for just honestly how to produce these videos. For the podcast specifically, I want to up the game for the video quality of the podcast. So like with titling, graphics, there's a lot of different things that I just want to make it look a lot nicer for you, the viewer. And honestly, in doing that and making things look nicer for the viewer is more fun in the post production and the production end, which I don't know how many people care about, to be honest. But you know, I feel like that's something that you don't know you miss until it's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of creators that I watch that I've watched them through the years. Like the Command Zone is a great example where I go back in their catalog and just see where they started, and where they started was a good place.
Yeah.
And then just continuing to see the quality improve and improve and improve over time. And it does not happen overnight.
Yeah.
And I feel like as creators, one thing that, you know, people get discouraged a lot when they don't see immediate growth or immediate results. It's like, well, you got to put the work in, right? And we haven't even been doing this a full year. We're seeing growth, which is great. Is it the growth we want? Maybe not. Is it ever the growth you want? Right. Like that's a good question. Like, is it ever what you want? Probably not. Right. But just continuing to put in the work and doing that grind. And for me, and I think a lot of creators should view it this way, is like, enjoy the grind, right?
Enjoy the process.
Yeah, enjoy the process, right? Because I mean, it is a process. Like that process is you doing the work. Okay, now let's look at it, see how it worked, see what did work, what didn't work, and then fix it, and then get better in the next time, right? So it is a legit process. And for me, it's fun. Like, I enjoy the process. Go ahead.
And even if it doesn't work out for, you know, whatever other content creators are out there, but, you know, the skills that you've now learned and you could even get better, or it's like, all right, well, now I know a friend of mine who also wants to get into YouTube stuff or live streaming, and you can help them set it up, help them with editing their videos. Because sometimes the people who are just doing it by themselves can't do like everything on top of being the personality, having the information, being able to do all the post-production work. You know, it's a lot, and not every single person can do it all.
Right.
So,
and that's what happened to us. Like before we got together, we were both doing our own thing.
Yeah.
You know, like I was doing, and I remember like we would watch each other's content. Like I'd watch his, I would like give him thoughts and ideas and tell him like, that's great. And like, I remember,
or like thumbnails and stuff.
Yeah. Like I got you on to what we're using, GIMP, right? Isn't that what you were using?
Yeah.
I got you to use that.
What was I was using some basic thing inside.
Microsoft Paint. Is that what you were using?
I don't even know if I was using Paint, but yeah, it wasn't good at all.
Yeah, I got you onto that because I know we were talking about it. Because I've been using Photoshop for a long time. Like as a photographer, I use a lot of Photoshop and a lot of Photoshop Lightroom, and I love using those programs. For me, they're a lot of fun. But like now it's like Adobe is a subscription model, and I know if you don't use a lot of that stuff, you don't really want to have to pay whatever it is to use. And it's not a lot, but still, like everything is moving to a subscription model now, and it's like if you're not going to use a lot of it, you don't want to pay for it. So I get it. So I had some other ideas that I threw out to Jim. And because GIMP was free, right?
Yeah.
I think GIMP was free. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. For a free program, GIMP.
It did take me a little bit to get used to.
Right.
And like I really had to force myself to use it.
Right.
And at the start there were some things I'm like, I just don't like this about this, about this software. And then the more I used it, I was just like, all right, that concern I had a while ago, I'm just like, whatever, because I'm just used to it now.
Right. So. And that's how a lot of it goes too. Is I don't like it, but then it turns into now I've gotten used to it. Yeah. Like once you learn it and you get used to it, then it's okay. Then it's fine. Then it's fine. So yeah, that's a big one for me, is like the polishing of video content.
Oh man, I also remember when when you did a video every single day for how long was that?
Yeah. So when I was doing my other channel,
until you went on vacation,
that was what it was. And when I went on vacation, I had a backlog.
Yeah.
And like I had stuff set up for like until I got back.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. But like when I got back, I'm like, all right, this ain't working.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my goodness, that's so
much.
much.
Now, but here's the
you
thing.
Also grew like a mother heck.
Yeah. So when I started posting regular video content, and like for YouTube, the big thing is consistency, right? Mm-hmm. But in the space that I was in at the time, which was I was basically doing Magic the Gathering Arena gameplay videos. That was what I was doing. Is like you had to post a gameplay video a day, right? Yeah. And so like that's just what the basically industry standard, I'll use that term, was that was what it was, right? So I made the decision to do that because I could pump those videos out relatively quickly. But I mean, they still took time. Like there was still a good chunk of time that I had to spend on making those videos. And when I started, there was another creator, MTG Malone, right? Oh, okay. So he started the same time I did, right? And so we were both growing basically at the same rate. He grew a little bit quicker than I did. Yeah. But I just checked. I think he's up to 10,000 subscribers right now. Yeah. So the big thing for YouTube is consistency. Yeah. Like, and I had talked to him like quite a few times because like we were basically we were like helping each other out like with ideas and stuff. Really, really nice guy. He is such a nice guy. And I remember the first video that he did was basically introducing himself to the Magic community. It was hilarious because he parodied all of these other Magic creators. I mean, there was one creator who was like, "You're going to be hearing from my lawyer," and he took it in stride. He was like, "Oh man, that's awesome! I'm so glad to hear from you. That's awesome. You're just one of my favorites." Like he took it and ran with it. Like he was great. He really handled it very, very well. He's grown crazy. He's grown exponentially. He's doing a great job. And so for me, what that points to is consistency. Like you be consistent and produce content on a consistent basis, you will see results, right? And that's kind of the big thing that was frustrating to me about taking this break. But again, it is what it is, right? But still, like that's one of the big things. But yes, I was doing those videos every day, and yeah, I don't know. Like I was just like, I don't know if this space is what I want to be doing. Like I had fun and I learned a lot. A lot of it was streaming related. Yeah. But I was like, I don't know if Magic is. I mean, I still love Magic. I just didn't know if that space was what I wanted to be doing on the platform. So yeah, because I remember like we were texting a little bit and you were like, dude, your videos, the fact you're doing every day, I'm like, man, you're like inspiring me.
Yeah. I'll wake up, see one of Dan's videos. I'm like, I haven't posted one in 3 days. But like, I was also doing different content.
Yeah. You were doing different content too. But you say that too, and it's like, it's nice to have somebody else going through what you're going through. Yeah. Like it gives you somebody to be accountable to, number one, but it also gives you a cheerleader, right? Like especially if you're friends, it helps. Like when you get down on yourself, you've got the other one there who's normally helping you through it. Yeah. And like pushing you to keep going. Yeah. And I know like you've done that with me a little bit. But like that's one of the huge benefits to, I wouldn't even say having a partner, but just doing something with a friend. Yeah. Right.
I mean, when people are joining up into a gym, it's really good to have someone who goes there with you. Right. Right. Because it'll be like, oh, I don't really want to, this happens all the time. I don't really want to go to the gym today. And they're like knocking on your door and you're like, oh, all right, I'll get up.
Yeah. Yep. Or like with this, I'll text you. Are you coming over?
Yeah. You're like, yep.
Yep, let's go.
Let me know.
Yep. So, all right. So the next thing is more interviews on the podcast. Like I want this podcast I want it to grow, right? Not just in viewership, but also just in terms of the show itself.
Yeah.
I want there to be more structure, which is what we're trying to do basically like on a weekly basis. Like we're trying to add more structure to it, but also add different segments, which that's actually another point here. We'll talk about that too. Different specific segments on the podcast, right? So, I want interviews. I don't want this to be, and I know, Jim, you'd probably agree with me. Like, I don't want it to be a hodgepodge of we'll just talk about whatever, which we do,
yeah,
right?
But it's different,
right? Right. Yeah. We do want there to be structure. We want there to be specific segments that we do, like stories, right? We want to continue to push that, which we'll talk about that in a little bit too.
Yep.
But just wanted to throw that little teaser out there. But specifically more interviews. I've got a long list of people that I want to reach out to, have them on the show, and honestly just meet them and talk with them. Like within this space, like tabletop gaming space, and just invite them on the podcast. We had a lot of great guests last year.
Yeah.
And that was fun. And it's super easy. It's really easy. Guys, if you have your own podcast or you want to talk to any of these creators, it's very easy. Just shoot them an email, and a lot of them will get back to you, and they're very kind, right? And if you want to talk to them, I'm sure they would be more than happy to join you on your podcast.
I was gonna say, especially if they're like someone who's solo.
Yes.
Being able to talk with another person, we're pretty much like regardless of who it is, if you're starting up or if you're more well-known into it, getting their story out more or figuring out more about the people who watch them as well. It's, it's a really nice thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, the first time we talked to Kelly was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like we never met her before.
Yeah.
But in talking to her, she was just the kindest, most bubbly person like I would ever have thought to meet online. And she was fantastic to talk to. And now we have a connection that of someone who we keep in contact with on Instagram, which is her main platform. And then just somebody that we can just chat with and honestly follow their journey.
Yeah.
In this space and their life and what they decide to put out there on these platforms. And so that's fun. Like if you follow a lot of tabletop gaming content, like on Instagram, for instance, and then you see all the stuff that they're doing, and then once you talk to them and then meet them, it's really cool to kind of get a peek into their world a little bit.
I was just thinking about board games and backpacks, or backpacks and board games. Oh, what was it? Chewing? The other guy we interviewed, you sent me a video.
Tim.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, Tim. Yeah.
When
That's
he did,
right,
when he was talking about like one of his channels,
or whatever. Yeah, right.
And he was talking about like backpacks or something like that. And
yeah,
they're like, what is this, board games and backpacks? Because it was board games and something else was his channel.
Yeah, so Tim does a lot of photography content, and so he was trying to merge photography and board games.
Yeah,
and so I don't know if he had that idea for a name or if
it was someone in the comments that said, "What is this, board games and backpacks now?"
Yeah.
Talking to him was great too.
So speaking of Tim. Fantastic channel. Go follow. Like he does some amazing cinematic videos. I mean, the quality on his stuff is off the charts. It's fantastic. As a photographer myself, I love the fact that there's an actual photography in board games. There's creators that take the visuals to a whole other level on these platforms. And like that pushes me to take better photos and make better videos too. Like, so that's awesome. All right. So we talk about more interviews, and we're going to be talking to Tim more for sure because he's awesome. But more games and gameplay content. So, that's what we're going to be doing a lot of. Like that's how we've started making content, was just doing high quality gameplay videos. Like we're going to be doing a lot of that for sure. But we're going to be doing more games, right? again, we are card game players. Like that's our niche. That's what we want to lean into. And so another game, we've talked about it before, is Dice Throne. We're going to be featuring Dice Throne for sure. There's a lot of other games that are out there that we want to play and push, but a lot of them, they're all card games. Like that's our bread and butter. It's what we love. When I found Dice Throne, I'm like, this is gonna be awesome. We played it.
It was awesome.
And it was awesome.
I got kind of destroyed at the start, but
and then
I learned how it worked.
Yeah, we learned how it worked, and it's fun, dude. That game is so much fun. So more games and gameplay content for sure, leading into different types of. I'm going totally out of order here, but that's okay. But we're also going to be doing different types of video content. Yeah. So we're not just going to be doing gameplay videos, but we're going to keep doing awesome gameplay videos because that's fun. But we're going to be experimenting with other types of videos. Like we did a tier list.
I love doing those.
That was a lot of fun. And that was like, it was fun recording. It was fun producing it. That was just a lot of fun, period. Yeah. And so we just did the core box for DC Deck Builder. Yeah. Do you know how many other boxes they've got? Right. And so like we have a lot of ideas for a lot of those games because where we, as card game players, like, we are strategy players, right? Yeah. That's kind of where our minds go when we play these games. And so we want to be doing those types of videos, like these strategy guides. Like I don't want to say guides, but but it's kind of what it is. Like I think when you say the word guide, I think the connotation that people get is they're like, oh, they're just going to tell me how to do this and how to do that. But that's really not how I like to view it because the way I view it, and you tell me how you view it, is like I talk through my thought process on how I view, let's talk about DC Deck Builder, for instance. I talk about how I view these different heroes and how they work within the game and how they synergize with these other cards. And then what to look out for and how you should, because a game like that is very dynamic, right? Yeah. It's not linear at all. Yeah. It is very changing all of the time and dynamic. And so you got to take cues and know, okay, what do we think is going to come because it's changing, it's random, right? And so it's a way to think. It's not what to think, it's how to think. Yeah. And that's how I like to talk about it. And I think especially with strategy,
I also think that's why we like doing the tier list so much because when we were going through it, we were like, oh, this card or this hero is really great with these cards and there's X amount of them, the odds of getting it, blah, blah, blah. So,
So any way that we can frame these conversations, we enjoy, but I also think it's helpful. I think it's helpful for you guys, for the audience, for everyone else who also likes to play those games. Yeah. And because I mean, whenever I sit down and play a game like that, the goal, like I want to win, right? I want to win. And how am I going to win? The way you're going to win is you got to know what's coming to the best of your ability and then know how to play the game, right? How to beat your opponent, how to strategize to best put yourself in the position to win. Yeah. Like there is a thing, and honestly, the first time I play a game, I do like to go in blind, like and learn it as I go. And because like you can only do that once. You can only play the game the first time once. Yeah. Right. And so that's its own experience. For me, I enjoy that. After that, I'm like, okay, now I want to know how to play. Yeah. Like, because, like, I view it as an achievement.
Right.
Right? Okay. Like, if I can win the first time without knowing how this game goes, like, that's an achievement in and of itself. Right?
Yeah, I can see it. Sure.
Right. Like, it makes sense, kind of. You may not like to do it and may think it doesn't make sense, but it works. Like, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
We'll say that. We'll just say it's a possibility. So anyway. I
hate going into things blind.
You do?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Playing a game blind.
That makes sense. You get too nervous, don't you?
Yeah, I get way too nervous. And,
your hands are shaking. You get shaken, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And like every time I play a new hero in Villainous, I'm like, I hate this. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. And like I was actually thinking about that. Because for me too, it's like, and again, it helps that we're doing this together,
Yeah.
right? So before we sit down, it's like, I want to take a minute. Let's look and see what we've got here. Let's see. Okay, Jim, let's look at your guy. Let's look at what your win condition is, and let's kind of see what we have here. That way, I know you're on the same page. You know what you're doing, and then same thing with me.
Yeah.
You know what I need to do. And so I think it's also like a strength in numbers thing, right? It's better when two people know how to do one thing than just the one person does, right? So like
the more people you have, it's just seeing things at different views and whatnot.
Right, for sure. And so like that for us, for Hobbies and Happiness, I think we use that. Like we don't just, when we sit down here, we're not just, okay, well, let's just play it blind. Because like it's one thing, like if I'm just like we're just hanging out and playing a game, right? It's a whole other thing if we're recording something and we want to put this out there. Yeah. Like I think we do that. Like I think we use each other, for that specific reason. I think that's great. Yeah, it's weird. I don't do it a lot. What I mean is I don't go into these things blind a lot. But when I have the opportunity, I try to if I'm not recording video. Yeah. All right. So we talked about more games. We're just excited for Dice Throne. We really are. Yeah. Talked about different segments in the podcast. Social media connections is another big one. I know I've updated social media quite a bit, but since we took that break, have not been posting. But we're going to get back to that. Social media is great. I love it for what we're doing for our business because it really lets us, communicate with our audience and the people that are following our content. We get a lot of great comments and a lot of people reaching out to us. And it's fun. Of course, we get plenty of haters too, and that's fun too. Okay, I mean, I shouldn't say it's fun. It's not fun. But,
I love reading them, honestly. I will. So you cheated in this game. I will never watch your content. You're the real MVP,
man. Yep. There's really not much else to say there.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And then the two big things that are goals for us for 2022 is a website is one of the big ones. We're gonna be working on that for a while. We want to make sure we get that live. That way we can have all of our content all in one place. Excited for that. And then streaming. Streaming is going to be a big one.
That's the one I really want to.
We've talked about streaming for a bit. I feel like I've just been hesitant. So soon we're just going to start making it a regular occurrence of just to stream. That way we can get live feedback from the audience and just hang out with you guys, the viewers and listeners. And then in addition to streaming, I have even tossed around the idea of doing the podcast live. Yeah. That would be very interesting.
That'd be fun.
That'd be interesting to do. We're doing it live. So those are some of the big things that we are looking forward to in 2022. I'm excited for where we're going, excited for where we've come, where we've gone, and really excited for where things are going in 2022 for Hobbies and Happiness. All right, so we touched on a little bit, but gaming stories.
Oh man!
So I know we've talked about these for I don't know, and I should have actually looked into this, but I don't know if we would have had this written down. But when we started doing the gaming stories,
for people bringing their questions in,
so if you've been listening to the podcast for a length of time, you probably would have heard us talk about this. But what we want to do is, guys, if you've got any stories of moments from when you've played games, like at your place, or if you're in your group, if you've got a funny story, send them in to us. Shoot us an email with whatever story you have, hobbiesandhappiness@gmail.com. Link is going to be in all the descriptions and show notes. But we've had a good response up to now.
Drew's put in a lot of good ones.
Yeah, Drew has put in a lot of good ones. Drew, you the real MVP. You the real MVP, man. So in light of the gaming stories over Christmas, I've got a gaming story that I did want to share. So over Christmas, we had, and I think I've talked about it before, but our foreign exchange student who stayed with us a few years ago now, but he is, you do know this, I know I've talked to you about this, but he is back and he is going to college. Mm-hmm. So he stayed with us over Christmas break for a little bit. He celebrated the holidays with us. And so we were over at a family's house, and of course we were playing games. So I brought over a few games, and of course we just played Secret Hitler. That's all we played.
Yeah,
because I love that game. It was a lot of fun. And so I can't remember if he had played that before. So he played with us. Okay, he was getting really good at it. So he was sitting next to me. No, he had never played it before then. We had to explain to him how the game worked, right? So there was one round. He was playing and he's sitting behind me. And of course, if you've ever met Peter, right? He's clearly Chinese, right? He doesn't have the best English. I've had to really teach him a lot of English, which is to be expected, right? He's from China.
Yeah.
But he does a really good job. And I can understand him really well now. But so he was sitting next to me and I was explaining to him how the game works. And it was, he ended up being on the fascist team, right?
Oh man!
So there were enough players to where one person was Hitler and two people were the fascists, right? So the three of them were on the team, right? So the two fascists, they knew who Hitler was, but I don't think he knew who they were, right?
Yeah.
So Peter was Hitler, so he didn't know anything. So if you can imagine. So if you can imagine a foreign exchange student who doesn't have the best English is the key piece of the whole game, and he doesn't know who anybody else is, right? I wish I would have known beforehand, I would have videoed him, but he did so good. He did amazingly well in that game. So at the end of the game, they ended up winning. They ended up winning because if you've ever played Secret Hitler, the way it goes is there's a part in every round where once it gets to a certain point, if Hitler's not dead, if Hitler gets elected to a certain position or whatever, then the fascists win. And so you have to ask the person, are you Hitler?
Yeah.
And then they will say yes or no, right? And they can't lie. They have to tell the truth. Because the big thing is, if you're a fascist, normally you're lying. You want everybody to believe you're on the other team, the liberals, I think. And so I'm asking him, I'm like, Peter, are you Hitler? And he's like, no, I'm not. And the other two people were like, no, he is. I'm like, you have to tell the truth. Now is not the time to lie. You have to tell us the truth. Because if you are, then you win. He's like, oh, okay, yeah. But he did so good. I'm like, Peter, you did amazing. I didn't think it was him at all through that game.
Yeah.
He did so good. Yeah, so that was fun.
Man. Social deduction games, I don't know if I'd want to play with.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you're already taking it's a little bit of a language barrier, English not being his first language.
Right. Yeah.
And then it's you now have to really understand them.
Yep.
It's, oh man.
He did so good.
I'm glad he won.
I was so proud of him. But he was having a really good time.
Yeah.
And because I remember when I'm asking him, all right, who wants to play? And he said he did. I'm like, all right, let's go. I didn't know how it was going to go, but he did really good. Yeah. He did amazing.
Funny.
He did amazing. So that was a gaming story that I wanted to share. Did you by chance have a gaming thing moment that happened? To you recently?
There's all right. I'm just gonna say a few words. I'm not gonna talk a whole lot about it.
Uh-oh.
But I've played Cards Against Humanity with my grandparents. That got It was hilarious. So you know how the judge, all right, maybe you don't know. So the judge has to go around, and when they read out the question, everyone passes the cards to them, and they have to read the answers.
Yeah. Yep.
It didn't matter if the answer made any sense. We just wanted to hear them say the worst possible thing that these cards stated. Yeah. And sometimes it would be so funny of like a card that was just so terrible.
Yeah, that didn't make sense.
Just like something
just
disgusting
vulgar or whatever.
Super vulgar.
Yeah.
And then like when someone would pick it, there would be like, oh, that's no way that's our grandma posted that card. And then, of course, she picked that card. And she's like, I know exactly what this means. Terrible cards on there. And it was, that's all I got to say, really. Funny. If you played the game, you know what these cards can be.
So I do have one other thing going off of that. So this was before Christmas, I think, when we had that Christmas party. You remember when you came?
Oh yeah, I hated that so much.
There's a little of a delay there, but that's okay.
I was like, Christmas. Oh, with the white elephant.
So I don't even remember. We played 2 games. There were 2 games that we played. The first game that we played, I don't even remember what the name of that game was.
I don't know.
I don't even remember, but it was the weirdest game that I'd ever played. I thought it was fun. Jim hated it. So basically the way it goes is every person, like you all sit in a circle, and then each person has their own distinct hand signal, right?
Yeah.
And basically what you're doing is you're throwing an invisible ball between the entire group, and the person in the middle has to basically intercept the ball and get somebody out, right? So essentially the way it works is if you have the ball, you have your own hand signal, and in order to throw it, you have to make another person's hand signal to them, and they have to make that same hand signal to receive the quote ball. Right. Yeah. And then once they have it, once they make that signal, they receive it. And then in order to throw it, they have to make that another person's hand signal. So the person in the middle, it's their job to find who has the ball and then basically tag them out while that person has the ball, basically.
Yeah, whoever it is.
Right, exactly. That was a crude description of the game, but that's basically how it works. Jim hated it. So Jim's signal was
it was
a
so
nod.
good.
It was a simple nod up and down, like yes. Okay.
Just a single nod.
A single nod, right? And so it got to the point where he was not having a good time at all. And he was making it known to everyone that he hated this game. So when someone tried to throw it to him, throw it, quote, in quotes here, they would make that gesture, nod up and down, and Jim, because in order to receive it, you have to make that same motion. He was nodding, instead of nodding up and down, he was nodding left to right, like
I was
no.
shaking my head. I'm like, I'm never.
So somebody
I
think somebody tried to get him out, and we were like, well, he technically didn't receive it because he didn't make that gesture or whatever. It was funny. It was. I thought it was hilarious. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be Jim right there.
Yeah. Oh man, that was dreadful.
So after that, we played, now I can't remember what we played. It was a game like Cards Against Humanity. Oh, it was New Phone Who Dis.
Yeah, that game was so cool. That was the one. I think I brought that.
I think you did. I think you did. But it's basically Cards Against Humanity with in the theme of text messages.
Yeah.
Is basically that's the best description that I can think of.
I don't think it's nearly as bad. Well, some of the cards were rough.
Yeah, some of them were.
Not nearly as bad as Cards Against Humanity.
But that gives you a good idea of what the game was like. So we gave you quite a few stories there. All right, so that's a show. That is a show for today. Again, I want to be doing this every year, right? I want to look back, and I think in order to be successful, I think you always have to look back on what you did, evaluate it, see what worked, see what didn't work, and then look forward to the future, and basically make plans and what you want to do. And so we laid out quite a few things here of what we want to accomplish and things and areas and items that we want to improve for 2022 going forward. Thank you for viewers, you guys listening and watching. It's because of you that we're getting this growth that we're feeling. So thank you. And honestly, I want to toss it to you guys. What ideas do you have, like from a tabletop or card game specific niche? Like, what do you want to see? What are things that you want to see? So you've seen a few different types of videos from us. Like, what do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? Like, we do want to get your input. I mean, yes, we're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to make these decisions, but we do want to know, like, what do you guys want to see? What do the viewers want? So we want to give you what you want, to an extent, obviously. So if you've got ideas, definitely shoot us an email, leave comments, leave a comment on this video, leave a comment on the podcast, however you're listening to it. Let us know. We'll listen. We'll listen to what you guys have to say, because we want to know what you guys want. Yeah. I mean, it's a data point, right? So, I'm very interested to see what our viewers and listeners want to hear and listen to from these shows. So that's what we've got. Jim, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Oh man, you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jim Morgan HNH.
And you can find me on Instagram at daniel.g.campbell and on Twitter at _DG Campbell. So that's all we got for you this week. And then next week, we've got another sweet episode planned for you guys. So until then, we'll see you guys next time. See you, everybody.
Take care.